This episode of Super Pulp Science is brought to you by The Automatic Age, the new novel from GMB Kamichuk. It's a story of a father and son in navigating an automated apocalypse. You can get your copy at greatplains.mb.ca.
Attention, citizens. It's time for Super Pulp Science.
This is Super Pulp Science, where we talk about how genre gets made. We're using science fiction technology to unite three brains into this one stream. I am here with Justin Curry, otherwise known as Chasing Artwork Online, and Dan Vadeboncoeur, our fearless audio engineer and producer, whose microphone actually sounds the worst of all three of us.
I want to say that we've also switched platforms for those who are interested in knowing the technical behind the scenes. We were on Zoom last time, which is when we lost Gregory to the wilds of the internet, but now we are using Facebook Live, Messenger, I guess, right? And Greg is recording the audio on his computer, so we can use that for the podcast. So this seems to be working pretty well so far.
Should we be recording the video too? We can upload this to the very first Super Pulp Science YouTube video.
Interestingly, I could. Dan is feeling a little self-conscious about his quarantine appearance.
This is quarantine hair. This is what happens, right? This is exactly the problem. I can't get a haircut anywhere.
I think that feral Dan has a certain rugged handsomeness that you should unleash more often. That's what I think.
I got up and I just was sitting at my desk all day today. Literally, I have not left because I've been working with other stuff. But I didn't have time to have a shower this morning. I could have, but I just didn't. So
I'm not blaming you. I got up early with the boys and went out. There's a few abandoned areas of the neighborhood where it seems that nobody is ever out. So we went bike riding there this morning, and that was a good way out. But that's the only reason that I'm showered and like semi-dressed is because we went out early. So
so I was up early playing video games this morning, and I'm playing an RPG right now. It's a remake of Final Fantasy VII, and I've set the challenge for myself that every time a character levels up, I have to do that many push-ups, which was like a great little thing at the beginning of the game. You start at like level 7, and just every once in a while you do a couple push-ups. But now everybody's in like the late 30s, like level 35, 36, 37, and they've all like their levels are all going up almost at the exact same time. So I end up doing like
you were looking a little swole this morning, yeah. So that makes sense, yeah.
So I woke up and played video games and did a lot of push-ups. It also forces me to stop because my arms get too tired to keep playing video games.
I wasn't going to make a comment about the level of responsibilities on display for 2 out of 3 of the podcast hosts right now. Right? Dan and I are both up early managing our kids and working, and Justin is up early playing video games and making push-up challenges.
Yeah.
To be fair, he's drawing something right now. He's working on something.
That's true. He is hard at work. I can see through my video feed. Dear listener, it's almost like I'm in the room with him, and he's working on follow-up. Oh, I can tell what that is. Those are follow-up ship designs, probably for the Starlight super ultra successful Kickstarter. Correct?
So you need the top-down views for the cards. I'm working on the top-down views of the ships.
Oh, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are turning out awesome. I was working all morning. It was interesting because the kids, I took them out for a little bit, and then Tara took them out to the woods for some, we did basically like phys ed today was going on a big long bike ride. And then science class is them going to collect things in the woods, which we have a microscope at home. So they've been looking at things in 4 different magnification levels and then drawing their favorite elements. And then they try to imagine first, before they look at the sample, what it will look like. And then they investigate based on that. But the reason I bring all that up is that they're out of the house now. And so for the last 2 hours, I have been making the grossest set of illustrations for the meat pre-production, and I'm glad they're not home. because it's gross, and I'd literally have to hide what I was drawing from them. It's been weird because I haven't had to work on that, or I should say, in all honesty, I haven't prioritized it over top of the other stuff I have to do right now. But with the house empty and no outside viewpoints, just trying to make something as disgusting as possible, I've yielded some pretty great results. It's this sequence where the sort of, think of a typical horror movie cast, right? They've come into the room and there's like a scary moment. They see a dude just standing in the corner, and he's the first normal-looking fellow they've seen in a long time, but he's all in the shadows of this slaughter room. And then they notice that his head is bigger than it should be, and then they track it upwards with a flashlight to see that it's part of this enormous, like the entire ceiling of the slaughterhouse is like this meat cocoon that this guy's head is like connected to.
Oh my God, that's great.
Yeah, and so he starts to scream, and then all these mouths open all across the ceiling and are screaming over top of them, and then everyone's running for their lives as this enormous, like, triple hippopotamus-sized creature, like, lowers from the ceiling with blood and meat and offal all dripping from it.
Nice.
So that's been my morning.
That sounds pretty great.
Yeah, it's been pretty great.
Do you know what weekend it is, too? Like
in our regular life, where we'd be?
In our regular life, we would be on the road, like arriving at Calgary right about now.
Oh, that hurts my feelings a little bit.
I know. It's the Calgary Comic-Con is a Thursday to Sunday show. And we usually leave the Wednesday so we can set everything up Wednesday, because Thursday is not just like a preview night. It's like it starts at 10 in the morning on Thursday, doesn't it? Or 12 maybe?
Yeah, that's right. It starts early.
You don't want to be setting up Thursday morning if you don't have to be. So we'd always get out there Wednesday and have like a nice setup and stuff. And it's funny, like the weather of like spring always triggers like all these like work emotions that usually come with the Calgary show, of like last minute panic pieces and just getting as much done as you can.
You know, the sad irony of that whole thing is we were more prepared for convention season this year than I think we've been in previous years, because we brought in people to help us do our sorts and pre-pack boxes.
True.
And I had done inventories for 3 of the shows that were coming up the soonest that I had already pre-packed. I was finally, in my own imagination, I had told myself, I think I got this figured out. Like, this is working now. This is almost like a stable, reliable job. And then we're doing different things now. So it's interesting. It just goes to show it's really our fault because we got too well prepared.
The system is absolutely foolproof. Now, everyone connected with the mall has been issued an ID badge, so that when the secure master goes online, the protectors will make Park Plaza the safest mall in the state. Trust me, absolutely nothing can go wrong.
How's the movie watching going?
Good. I've changed tactics for the 90s. I've gone, because the 90s is probably the decade in which I've seen the most movies. I began working at a Blockbuster Video in 1997, and so every movie that came out at the point, plus all the back catalog stuff I'd watched. So I decided to change it up and choose films that I already love, like my favorite movies of these years. So starting in 1990 with The Hunt for Red October, which is that's like I can't not watch that movie every time it's on TV. It's a perfect film. So I'm kind of going through the best of the best for the 90s. I'm going to switch back to ones I haven't seen in the next decade, just because after I left Blockbuster, I didn't watch as many movies. So there's a lot of stuff in the mid to late 2000s, and then this last decade that I haven't seen, of course, because then I had kids and my life got busier, and so I just could not spend as much time watching movies as I used to. So we'll move back into that. But for now, yeah, lots of people are feeding in and enjoying the movies they're picking, and so it's a great kind of throwback to watch these films and remember my experiences, like Jurassic Park.
94, right?
What? 93, and it was I distinctly remember going to see that opening night at the Grant Park Cinemas, and it's probably one of the best theater going experiences of my life, as far as like the entire audience being so into the movie. Like when that raptor comes out from behind Laura Dern and just jumps out and get that big jump scare, the whole freaking theater jumped. Like everybody was so on edge for that. And I don't think I've been to a movie since where that's happened. Everyone seems to know now because people see previews and so much information. But at the time with Jurassic Park, nobody really knew what to expect with that movie. So it's very cool stuff.
I saw that one in a drive-in.
Oh, that'd be cool. That's the only way we can see movies now. Through a social distancing. They say the drive-ins can make a comeback now because
oh my God, there used to be one that clung to life on the outside of Winnipeg for so long.
Right.
If only it was still there.
I wonder if the screen's still there. I don't think it is.
I think it is, but the because we passed by it not long ago, it looked pretty overgrown and derelict, the whole thing. But maybe that would make it even better. What was I going to say about Hunt for Red October? It has now, for those of you who are new to the podcast, Justin loves bottle movies. A bottle movie or a bottle story is where all of the events take place in a really enclosed, encapsulated space. So Hunt for Red October is like the best of both worlds, right? There's like a bottle inside of a chase under the ocean.
Yeah. One of the does have some outside the submarine shots, particularly the beginning.
It's all about him climbing into the bottle, though. It's like the whole opening is like
one person pointed out on one of my posts that they saw the models for that film when they went on a tour of Paramount or something like that. Cool. And I love the miniature work in that movie is incredible. Like those really feel like real submarines when you see them underwater, and so that's just it's a perfect film. There's nothing wrong with that movie at all, in my opinion. Even Russian with a Scottish accent.
I was gonna say there is one. As a person of Russian descent, there is something that bothers me about that movie. It's a caterpillar. Right. No. That always bothered me a little bit. But he does have the right. He makes a good captain. What I love about Hunt for Red October is it always as a child felt to me like a great science fiction movie. Like it was like a Starship Combat. It's like what I wanted Starship Combat to be in movies that I saw. Not so much fast laser work, but like slow creeping, sneaking, and big explosions. So it was a nice place for my imagination to run wild. I did see that movie way too many times. What was up with that? It was just on TV all the time.
It is still on TV all the time. Yeah, I see it every once in a while.
Has it suffered like is it the It's a Wonderful Life of submarine movies?
Well, no, that one was like there was no copyright or something on that movie.
That's what I'm asking. Is like, did they let go of the?
I don't know.
Wild.
Yeah. Speaking of science fiction, I've been I just finished binging like 3 seasons of The Outer Limits, and then Amazon.
The original?
Yeah, no, sorry, not the original. The one I grew up with, the one from like the 90s.
Oh, that was great. Canadian production. That was made in Canada.
You can tell there's so many and so many Canadian actors. Like was their starting role. Like oh God, I can't even think of them all. But there's lots. Like every other episode, you're like, oh God, it's young so and so.
Yeah.
And then that turned me on to there's similar kind of format, Electric Dreams on Amazon. It's also like short sci-fi stories. And then kind of breaking quarantine ever so slightly, I dropped by Greg's house and picked up his new book, Automatic Age. I couldn't help but like picture that story in the sci-fi Outer Limits or like that setting. It's like so perfect, the format of the book for an episode like that. It felt like reading a script almost for an Outer Limits episode.
I appreciate that. It is an alternate history kind of world. But you know what I'm interested in right now about that experience for you reading that book is you were in the studio while I worked on it. You saw illustrations as they came together. You're not like a typical first reader because you didn't just get the book, see the cover, and go for it.
At some point, you were talking to like Jonathan or you're talking to your editor or somebody, and they wanted you to explain more of the world, and you were saying how like no, I don't want to sit here and explain the world. I want the reader to just travel through it with the characters, and you see it through their lens, but nothing's explained, because why would they stop and explain it? And I've been thinking of other stories like that where you almost want to stop and you want to explain the whole backstory, but that's it's not sloppy storytelling, but it's almost lazy, and you should find other ways to kind of explain the world through the characters' actions. And I think you guys did a really good job of that. Like, at the beginning, there's a lot of things you don't understand, but slowly, as the story progresses, your lens of the world widens and widens, and you by the end, I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of it. Whereas at the beginning, you're like, what is all this?
So I made myself, when I was writing it, do this kind of, it was almost like a little bit of algebra. So like if I introduced a mystery or a term or a phrase in a section, and for the dear listener, the book is written in these really short really short chapters. So if in chapter 1 I introduce a concept, by chapter 2, they have to have discussed it again to remind you that it exists. And then by 3 or 4, have to have used it commonly enough that the reader can figure out what you're talking about, without anyone ever specifically saying, here is the definition of that term or idea. The same way that if someone overheard us talking about Kleenex during the pandemic, we would never stop and say, oh, a Kleenex, you mean that tissue you use for blowing your nose?
Yeah. Actually, I think it's especially in stark contrast, because I started listening to Skyward by Brendan something. I started listening to an audiobook, and it's been a recommended good sci-fi story, but I'm very early into it, and already it's like a kid and her dad going on a bit of a journey, and they stop and they explain too much, and it's just people don't think about the entire backstory of the world as they're going through it, and people don't talk about it the way they're talking about. So it's there because they want to catch the reader up on the world. And I think, it's better if you just kind of let people's imagination fill in the gaps.
They remind me of your mother. It's the laser eyes.
With Automatic Age, I made this very specific decision to only have it come up in dialogue and slowly sort of tease out elements. I mean, the basic plot line is pretty obvious, right? Robots are hunting people to the death.
Yeah.
Right? But with a book like
it's just line of code was added. They're not, it's just one more job that they have to do.
That's right. And
it's not this systematic extra bit of cleaning.
But this notion that you said about when you're world building in a story, how much you tell with the Once Lines books that we're working on right now. Also a similar format, illustrated, short chapters, short stories basically that we're expanding into a novel series. It's a fantasy world where legend and hyperbole are common. So characters telling the legend of a place or telling the backstory of how a city came to be or who that king is or whatever, it kind of lends itself to this bit of exposition, because characters would show off their knowledge, at least the way that world is. In a fantasy setting or in a quasi past, it's sort of like a analog of a 13th, 14th century. Most people didn't know anything and needed things explained when they arrived in a new place. So it's like the opposite style of world. Whereas in a modern world, Automatic Age is more reflecting our modern sensibilities about media, where you assume the average person knows everything about their world and they don't ask questions about how buttons work and how consoles work and what this technology is, because it's ubiquitous, right?
Yeah.
Whereas in a fantasy setting, so many things are new to everybody that a little bit of exposition kind of works. At least that's my feeling about it as a writer right now.
And that's why in so many fantasy and sci-fi stories, they have the main character is usually new to the world that they're coming into, just like you are. Mm-hmm. Luke Skywalker didn't know much more than what was happening on the farm, So you're kind of finding the world along with him. That's why it's so.
Yeah, I think that's why. And Dan, he runs a whole podcast all about Star Wars. He can comment on this, I think.
We haven't been able to talk about it in a while.
Yeah. Here's my take on it. Star Wars gets worse the more you know about the world.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't disagree with that.
Like, it's a really interesting setting while there is still mystery left. But once all the mystery is sort of eroded away and you've shone a light in every corner, then it's not that interesting. And it actually leaves you so much. If everything is too well explained, and here was my danger, the thing I worried about with Automatic Age, if I explain it too specifically, someone smarter than me would point out the holes in my own logic.
Right. Like if you tried to be the expert on everything. Right. Yeah. I see.
I'm not the expert on how you'd actually build a super connected, positronic brain run world. So people who actually know about that stuff would be able to point out any flaw or inconsistency. Whereas if I treat it like just a layperson living in that world who doesn't totally understand, like I know how a car runs on a combustion engine, but I couldn't take one apart and tell you all the pieces, right?
There's that great scene in The Watch. I kind of liked it. It was an okay movie. It was that sci-fi movie about like Ben Stiller, and he's a neighborhood watch, and then aliens invade.
Oh.
And there's a scene at the end when they come up into the alien mothership, and they're friends with one of the aliens, Mose from the IT crowd, and they come to like the big satellite that's about to send out the signal to say like, come invade Earth. And they go to Mose and go like, okay, like how do we stop this? And he's like, I don't know. I'm not a scientist. Like, do you know how your cell phone works? No, it's just it's a light up thing that we probably need to blow up.
Yeah, but which is, it lends itself to this air of mystery, though, ultimately, right? If you have no hidden places in your story, then there's no place for the reader's imagination to fill in the gaps. I've been reading right now, my quarantine binge reading has been Fritz Lieber's. I don't know what has been wrong with me, why I have left it until now to read them. I feel like I should have read them 20 years ago so that their influence could have soaked in me. But the Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser stories of Lankmar, whoa. But tons of exposition explaining about the world. And every time he introduces an idea, he also introduces at least 5 things that he does not explain. And so there's this constant evolution where you feel like, oh, I know more about Lankmar. Oh, I know what these people are like. Oh, wait. I didn't know anything about these characters. Here's a new concept introduced in this new story, into this new story. And I've just been tumbling along with it. So really enjoying those. A real harsh indictment on they were written, I think, originally in 1919 or something. So there is some really strong social commentary about the way the world is baked underneath these pretty high fantasy epic stories. So I've been enjoying that. I have a question for you as an illustrator, Justin, related to Automatic Age, now that you've seen it all put together. Too many illustrations? Not enough illustrations? Interruptions? What is your harsh critique?
Because what I found, my favorite part was my favorite part was that you nicknamed all the autovolts that were after them, and I kept going to the front trying to find them, because you start off the book with a bunch of illustrations of autovolts that have been all torn up. So I kept trying to find the autovolt that you were talking about in the chapter at the beginning.
Oh shit! What a completely missed opportunity. That's super smart.
I thought like, oh my god, Hearthole, that's a great name. Is he at the beginning? That would be so great.
He's in there. You see him in there. Yeah, he is you can find him, but the other ones are not so obviously illustrated. Yeah. How come I didn't show you an early draft of this? That is a great idea. Okay, so I'm working on Backbone of Night right now. I'm 100% going to use that.
I think we like how you're talking, like you introduce a concept and you explain it later. When you introduce it in text early on and then explain it with a picture later on, so you're kind of like rather than having the pictures like correspond with what's going on in the story, they're almost like their own little,
like a little reveal or treasure.
yeah.
Well, one of the things I wanted to do with that early section, Dear Reader, Automatic Age starts with 4 or 5 sequential illustrations of just smashed up Autovolts. And the Autovolts are the humanoid robots that come to hunt humanity to extinction. I wanted to kind of have this visual representation of a bunch of different adventures that we never saw. So each of those smashed up robots represents a kind of adventure like the one you're reading. Like each one of those would have a whole book to go with it, you know? Automatic Age, deep down, is really underneath it. The real plot is this one Autovolt heart hole, they nickname it because it has a hole right above its heart, is chasing them, and they can't sort of shake him through a good portion of the story. But I wanted to suggest that guy with the shovel in his head, you know, and the the one with his guts all pulled out in the front there, that these all would represent desperate escapes and chases that the father and son would have gone through up until this point.
The one that creeped me out, there's one that's covered in scratches.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jesus. What's that? Robot blood.
Where are you? Because there's going to be a trilogy all said and done?
So,
or 5?
The interest of full disclosure, I signed a contract to give. I pitched it as a 5-book series, and I'm under contract for 3 of them. And by the time the 3rd one, I guess, is out or in production, we'll know whether or not you only get 3, or whether or not I finish the other 2 on my own as convention exclusives, or if we expand it beyond the scope of those 3 back to 5, or maybe onward. I could write in this world, honestly, I feel like, for the next 20 years.
Well, and you'd probably leave these characters and go spend some time with some other characters, correct? Yeah.
Well, so it's interesting you say that, because I'm toying with the idea of introducing the next book in this series from a completely different character's standpoint.
Yeah, for sure.
And then have it continue from where that character meets them. So, like in Automatic Age, which you read, when he meets the crazy dude who wants to take his kid away.
Well, yeah, what's his story?
Right.
Yeah.
Other characters like him, we would start the sequels from their perspectives. And then when they meet those characters, that's when the story would carry on with our sort of the main character. But from a structural standpoint, that creates a lot of challenges. So right now I'm writing the core plot elements of Backbone of Night. Really having a blast doing that. I figured out, I actually had an epiphany on my walk just yesterday. What will be the clue to the dad that everything is about to get really, really bad? I wanted to give them a moment's peace. So like in the sequel, they meet a group of people that seem to be sort of like okay. They find a conservation zone where the robots don't go because it's like a national park.
Yeah.
And they find a bunch of people living there safe inside the conservation zone. And then I figured out I wanted to have the opening chapter actually be a clue to why those people are doomed forever, but not have the reader be able to tell until it shows up.
That anime movie on Netflix, Blame? I think it's Blame.
Yeah, that's a good one.
There's that town is protected by the robots because there's some kind of mechanism in there that just is sending out a buffering field. So the robots just can't sense anything in that buffering field. And then near the end of the movie, that breaks down. And so suddenly all the robots know they're there.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to do now, and this is a good thing for people, for the dear listener who's thinking about how do you plot a book versus what is the pants part of the book. I write a lot of these stories starting with an anchor image, starting with an idea, and then I stitch those things together along the way. But as I get enough of it, I still need a reason, a plot, a sort of capsule that fits around the whole story. And so like in Automatic Age, when they go to the barber shop, I had that written as its own scene. The scene's purpose was to explain what the coins do and how the world is coin operated, right? And that was sort of its purpose.
I like that, yeah. And I like the explanation as to, like, you don't really need the coins, but we were so used to money, we kept them around.
Yeah, it's
like,
traditional to pay for things, right?
Traditional, yeah.
It's traditional. And so I had that sort of as its own thing for a long time. And then when the book was starting to become a full book shape, like a full book size with chapters all in the right order and things, then I went through all of those plot elements and said, what is the emotional through line? What are the characters going to say to each other that's worth caring about in these different places, right? Mm-hmm. So I have this scene in the sequel where I know the sort of father-son moment, the pivotal moment, that like horrific argument that you have with your kid that's starting to grow up a little bit. You know about those, Stan.
Yeah.
Right? You know, the I hate you, I wish you were dead arguments that you have with your kids, right? Not you as a parent wishes that, but they say things that they wish they'd never said. So I knew I wanted to include one of those, but I needed it to also be like hinged around in like that the reader would know that the dad is absolutely right, that he's not being unfair, that he's not, you know, just trying to have his way. But that's what it'll look like to the kid, and you'll side with the kid. You'll be like, you know, from a kid's point of view, he's just being a jerk, and trying to also roll up that real thing, which is like, you know, I have a my oldest son just turned 11, but he's going on 17 for sure. You know, I wanted to take one of those moments, which was just so heartbreaking for me when he was so mad at me that he thought I'd let him down and that I was only doing it, you know, only saying these things or doing these things because it's what I wanted in the world, and I wasn't thinking of him. It was all being selfish, when really everything was about, no, that's not safe, right? It's just not safe for you to do that. So like to take all that heart moment, I've been writing those sooner. So with Automatic Age, I wrote all the plot elements first and then added the heart later. The heart has been the through line that I've got all the scenes for now, and now I've been going through trying to figure out plot ahead of time. Or after the fact, I should say. So it's been an interesting... I feel like that's because my writing process has been totally flipped upside down. Normally I go to busy places and write in crowded restaurants and crowded like atriums, and I love the noise of people, but there aren't any. I can't go anywhere like that right now. So instead the writing has started in those like moments at home, right? All the relationship stuff, which is basically what we're in relationship soup in my house here. 4 of us all living together. So that's changed things.
How much of the second and third, like, where are you progress-wise?
I have a roughed out first draft of the second book. Not good enough to show like my editor, but good enough that when my editor says, how's the book going, I can say with confidence that it's going well. Mm-hmm. Part of the pandemic response has been, you know, bookstores and everything is slow to act. Orders have been pretty good, even despite all that, which is kind of nice. So thank you, dear readers. I love you too. But what the timeline we agreed to and what the timeline will actually be, it's hard to say exactly.
Yeah. What was the original intent? How often were you going to release these?
Well, I wanted, and again, so for the dear listener, when we sat down to negotiate what the contract would be like, my thought was that putting out a book every 6 months might be great to feed, because they're short reads and they are this episodic feeling, and they can be read in any order. Putting them out quickly and having them even compete with each other in the market would be, in my mind, fine. And there was a general consensus that would be okay. And so my feeling was by the end of this convention season that I'd be turning in Backbone of Night the same way that I turned in Automatic Age at the end of last convention season. And then the next one 6 months after that. And we would have sort of a sense of sales. But all of that has kind of been affected. So it's hard to say exactly where we'll be.
It does remind me a little bit about how Stephen King released The Green Mile. Remember that?
Yes. Yeah, I remember that. You know what I remember the most about that?
What?
Being at 7-Eleven as a young reader and trying to make heads or tails of all these short serialized chapters of The Green Mile all over the newsstand.
So it was exactly that. They were competing with each other.
Yeah, and in a way, it was neat because I'd never seen that before. But I realized that, I realize now in retrospect, like thinking back on it, because they were all chapters of the exact same novel. If you picked up chapter 10 and chapter 2 and tried to read them, it would ruin you as a reader, right? What I'm trying to do with Automatic Age is that it's like the old Conan serial novels, right? You know enough about the main characters that you don't have to be introduced to them if you've read another one. But if you haven't, it introduces you to the main character just enough that you get the vibe to go on this particular adventure with them, right?
Okay.
And that it can be read out of order. And I've been doing that to myself, actually. Like when I read those early Conans, I found them in bookstores and in comic stores and in 7-Elevens, read them all out of order. And they're not intended to really be part of one serialized story. They're just revealing the world of sword and sorcery to you through the eyes of a guy who doesn't like sorcery. Right?
Just likes a sword.
Right? And so this, like Automatic Age, is kind of that way. It's this automatic world where the main characters don't like it. And so the parts that the reader gets to see through their eyes are all the ways in which it's dangerous and scary. And somewhat like the malfeasance involved in the world.
Look what you did. I ought to turn you into scrap metal for this.
May I see your identification badge, please?
Identification badge?
Do not make any sudden moves.
Sudden move? I'll give you a sudden move upside your head.
Here's an opinion for you and for the dear listener. Do you care why... Here, well, you make it a Star Wars questions, all right? Do you care why the Empire needs to conquer everything?
Not really.
No. Have you ever been told?
Power? I don't think so. We never really look at the real motivations.
Yeah, we never know the motivation of that big bad, as long as it's introduced to us through its actions as being bad. And I'm trying to figure out, which loops us back to the beginning of the conversation with what you were saying, Justin, how much of the plan of the robots does the reader need to know? And that's what I'm struggling with. I made a plan, I wrote out a plan, like what they're trying to execute. And I'm trying to figure out how much of it is kind of a need-to-know basis and how much of it actually doesn't matter.
I was wondering that too. Like, is this automatic world actually smart, or is this just a glitch in the code, and they've just suddenly decided? Like, the fact that they're still going about doing all the dumb things that they don't need to be doing, right? Like making a full meal. An automated like house makes a full meal. And then at the allotted time, it's all thrown out,
right.
Like stuff like that, right? Like all that's happening all over the place. So is this machine like ongoing? Like, is there going to be next steps in the plan? Like, it does seem like it's evolving and doing different things in the story, but is there a purpose it's going towards, or is it just functioning and it doesn't have a real thinking mind to do anything else other than what it was built to do?
So the long-winded answer starts with Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. In the hero's journey, the main character starts in the ordinary world, and then an inciting incident sort of sends them on their new journey. In Automatic Age, the ordinary world is that there was an apocalypse where almost everyone was killed by these robots. Politely, though. Like, they came knocking on every door, and they came through every house, and they killed everyone and then cleaned up the mess. That already happened. So the inciting incident, the change in state for the father and son in Automatic Age, is that phase 2 of the plan has begun. And there are just little hints along the way as to what the change in strategy among the Autovolts is now. And it's a very systematic one. They did it sort of one Autovolt to a house, and then eventually to a neighborhood, and spread their way out. And of course, Kieran and Barry survived that. When they're not the only, and they meet a few other people along the way, so they're not the only ones to have survived that, which means it wasn't a perfect execution. Well, if you're a robot, you probably have a phase 1, a phase 2, maybe a phase 3. And so the story starts with sort of phase 2 starting, where the Autovolts are, spoiler alert, pairing up and going back over to places they've checked before, right? They have a new search criteria, right? They check every food storage place, every diner, every place now more carefully.
Remind me of the plot in, is it Mama? Is that what it was called? Mother. The
I Am
robot.
Mother.
Oh, I Am Mother. Oh,
Yeah.
I like that one. Yeah.
So
the plot is the Bible. I Am Mother. It's Genesis.
Sorry?
The plot of I Am Mother is Genesis chapter 1. P.S.
So at the end,
I'm serious. I'm not making that up. That's exactly.
I know.
restarting humanity, right?
What's that?
She's restarting humanity with a better version of humans.
It's the garden.
Yeah.
And there's Adam and Eve, and they sup from the knowledge of good and evil, and then they go out into the world, and God reminds them why God is in charge, that God is a vengeful God, and they should stay in the garden in this particular version. That's what I Am Mother is about. And they've just changed it to be all females. They gender flip everything. So God's a lady robot, and Adam's a lady, and Eve is the new son being born. Like, they've done a pretty clever switch. But it seems to be, from a science fiction standpoint, all of humanity is devastated by war. The planet itself was wiped clean by some huge conflict. And
didn't she do? Yeah,
it's like a genetics lab.
Yeah, she killed them all off so she could kind of start again.
Yeah, that's right. She just sort of wiped it all clean and then kept a few in bottles, bred them, and then tried to restart the human race.
We're led to believe, as the audience, we're led to believe at the beginning of the film that this was all put into place by humans. This is like a contingency in case humans were wiped out. This is how they repopulate the planet. That's what we're led to believe.
Yeah.
In that.
Right. Okay.
And so I, the interesting thing about movies and stuff like that is, as soon as I see a contemporary film written around the same time as something I'm working on or like released, I have to scratch out any plot elements that are related to something like that. So I originally had this plot. Actually, it's funny you say that. In the second draft of Automatic Age, my thought was the plan for the robots is that they are going to capture whichever humans made it out of the first purge.
Oh.
Right? Because they sort of deserve to survive.
You slip through the net, you make it on to phase 2.
That's right. And then now you get to be the ones that live on. And then I saw I Am Mother, and I was like, nope, too close. So I came up with a different reason why some of them slipped through. And I mean, the initial reason, and for the standpoint of like, as a writer, I wanted the characters that survived that first incursion to have survived on their own wits. It's not part of any grand plan that they survived, right? It is because they are capable of surviving that they survived. But there are a few people who did survive, and if you are, like from the standpoint of what is the plan of the big bad, if you know that some are going to survive, that you've done the math, a certain percentage of humans are going to miss out on this first wave, our first strategy. What will you do with them? Or what will you do to them? Or how will you catch them becomes your next level. And I just tried to do it like a chess game. I imagine that the powers behind the Autovolts are 2 steps ahead of the human population. And until that population, specifically the main characters, until Barry and Kieran are 2 steps ahead of the robot, they're basically on the run for the first 2 books. And then by the third one, the plan is to have them reclaim their agency and then have a decision to make. Is it worth saving the Earth from this threat? Or is it better just to live somewhere else? Is my current plot development. Like asking the question, at what point is society not worth saving?
Right.
Which is funny because I was looking through my notes and I had written that question in my notebook. At what point is society not worth saving? Long before this pandemic started. And now looking through those notes, they take on a very different tone when I look through it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting. Also, just like the practical side, the business model of one of the reasons why we made the books the way we did was because we were responding to information I had from the show floors, right? I knew how a book of that size, price point, length would sell, and how often I would see repeat customers, and how quickly I could produce a book that would be of good quality with enough illustrations that it would feed that cycle maybe within the same convention year.
Did you have much of a chance to do conventions with Red Earth?
I was just starting, basically this year they were starting. We had done 2 small shows, and both of those shows were things that Red Earth should not have done well at, like just as far as the general crowd, like anime show. And instead, it was one of my top sellers for books off the table. People just liked the format. They liked that it was a done-in-one. They liked that it was a bit of a mystery. They liked that it was a lower price point. Dan's holding it up in front of himself right now. It's very good. So this,
we've talked about like at conventions before with like people who sell novels, like big novels, versus like something like a print, and we've kind of surmised that a lot has to do with how much time are they willing to put into something before they know if they like it or not. And with a book, it takes a lot of convincing. You're gonna have to put a couple days, couple hours, couple weeks, depending on the novel.
Absolutely.
Your book, I think, like, I polished it off, like 3 hours, something like that. Like, it was just I read half of it, took a break, and then read the other half, and I was done in pretty much a sitting. And
it's written and designed to be and I mean this specifically, I designed it so that I could finish a book like it in a plane ride. Like that's how I was trying, like the kind of thing that if I'm getting on a 3-hour flight, I could put this book in my pocket and be totally somewhere else and finish before it's wheels down. Now, not everyone who reads books obviously gets in a plane, but there's a lot of commuters that read books. And
that's when I read the most. When I was taking the bus to and from college, I chewed through so many novels that 3 years.
And I wanted to keep the price point low enough, which is why it's the size that it is and why the illustrations are black and white and not color. The price point low enough that if you polish it off in 3 hours, it's more entertainment than you got for a movie for less money.
It's true.
Right? And you can read it again or lend it to somebody else or what have you. And then the other side of the format and size, it's 5x7 PS to your reader, was that it made it easy to sell in collections also. So once there were 3 at the table, now those 3 volumes are the same price as a full color graphic novel.
Yeah.
But they don't cost me more to produce than that same graphic novel. And
I thought it was hilarious that you put French flaps on this book.
Oh, you know.
You love French flaps. Like you didn't just...
I'm rubbing my face, dear reader. You can't see it, dear listener. I love flaps. But here's the other practical reason for the French flaps. On a softcover book, when I did Infinitum versus Midnight City, Midnight City does not travel as well to and from shows in boxes or suitcases as Infinitum does. Infinitum has French flaps, and it doubles the cover strength when it's folded over. So there's no wear and tear. You can bring a mint copy of Infinitum in a suitcase a lot easier than you can bring a mint copy of Midnight City home. And so when it came around to this idea that I'm going to, it's ironic really. I'm planning to do 25 shows and I have all of these copies I want to take around and they're going to go in suitcases because they're small. I want them to survive the journey through the difficult world of international flying. And now they're all in my basement, safe and sound, with no need of those French flaps.
There'll come a time, don't you worry.
Well, that's it, right? I was reading a copy of some history books I have about, well, actually two versions. I was reading one medieval history book that was written about 110 years ago, but then I was also reading Tacitus, A History of Rome, which is a lot older than that. And you realize that a book has a long life.
Yeah.
Right? The book goes a long way, does a lot of things, and there's no real rush. It'll get out there when it gets out there.
What was that?
That's the sound of us being locked in here all night. The security doors don't open till 6.
Oh no, we're never gonna get out of here.
Yes, we are.
The phone's dead. The computer must have taken control.
Now, speaking of fancy illustrated books, dear listener, Justin has been sending me pages and environments from Dragon Nanny, and holy shit, that's some next level work you've been doing there.
I'm pretty excited about it.
Like, Cassian Tonk is good, and your work improved in Rust and Water, but the leap between Tonk and Rust, and the leap between Rust and Dragon Nanny, it's like exponential, it feels.
I think it's been Cassian Tonk was 2014, Rust and Water was 2016. It's been 4 years since I've finished a novel. Like I've done.
Yeah, we did a bunch of shorts, right?
Right now, I've published 9 books, which is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So this will be book number 10. But yeah, I'm excited, and I think a lot of it has to do with what I've learned in the last couple of years.
Like what?
I don't know. It's I think I've taken on projects, and I've just expanded my portfolio with I would say just mostly backgrounds, honestly. Like the last couple of years, concentrating more on full fleshed out scenes rather than just characters. Well, which I think most illustrators start with kind of like the pin-up style, right? They concentrate on just one character and not much going on in the background. And then environment artists are almost seen as like kind of a separate breed.
Separate skill almost. And in comics, editors, if you can do both, editors love you.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think I'm finally finding like an equilibrium between the two. More and more, like I think when I was starting out, a piece would take me like 4 to 6 hours because it was just a single character. More often now, I'm spending like 2 to 3 days on the same painting, like 4 or 5 times the amount of time on a painting, because there's so much stuff going on in the background that's interacting with the character. It's not just the character themselves. So I think that's bleeding into the storytelling, and it's going to help.
Okay, this is a armchair psychologist question for you. Do you think that this is because you no longer require as much external validation for your art, and so you're spending more time doing what other people might see as unessential? And let me quantify that. When you start as an artist, often you start, like you said, with pinups, and then you try to make that same character twice, right? Can I draw him or her more than once? Can I do them in different angles? Ooh, if I can do that, then I can show emotion. If I can do that, now I can tell a story. Oh, where is that story going to take place? Now backgrounds and those elements of setting take on almost a secondary feeling. But you're trying to get a story out, right? Trying to get a capture. Whereas now you seem to be spending a lot more time on the environments of Dragon Nanny are gorgeous. And I just wonder where that's coming from.
I think it's boredom of doing the same thing over and over again. Like every time my style switches up, changes, or evolves, it's usually because I've stagnated or become bored with it. And so just naturally change happens.
Right.
And I've noticed that like overall throughout my career, it's usually when I'm getting really bored doing one thing that something changes, whether I mean it to or not. And I think that was part of this whole like really intricate background pieces, was just I was bored doing whatever my current thing was. I was just getting stagnant with it. So my brain said, we're doing something else now.
Well, and there's a lot of research to suggest that boredom is your brain's way of getting you to change tacks because it's damaging. Right? Sorry, public school, but boredom is your brain's way of telling you that this is harmful, to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So, dear listener, what part of the way that Justin and I have been working on this project in particular, and we've talked about it in a few other episodes, is for him to, lately anyway, for him to be doing these illustrations of setting, background, some character elements, and just sending them to me non sequitur. They arrive to me, quote unquote, big air quotes here, over the writer without my direction or input. We don't have a typical writer-illustrator relationship on these projects or books the way that I have on some other projects that I'm working on right now, where the illustrator has to send me a rough, and then I approve it, and then I fit it in, or the way I'm working with another writer right now, where they send me the script, I send them a rough layout, and then they approve it, and then I carry on. We don't have that relationship here. Justin is as much a writer on this project as he is the illustrator. It's almost like the first drafts are images rather than words, and then we figure out what some plots are together, and then based on that plot, he goes back and makes some beats. And then once that starts to be sort of 2/3 finished, I'm going to come in and show him a few different scripts that I've written that could go over top of these stories, which is different than other writing systems in that it's more like, I don't know, it's more like making music, even though I can't hold a tune to save my life. You know, it's like jamming more than it is like following a plan.
It's like when one artist makes an orchestral version, and then somebody comes in and like lays lyrics over top.
Yeah, like a remix or a call and response, really.
But you guys did agree on an overall story arc and like the kind of major beats. You've already kind of worked that out ahead of time, no?
We did, and then we changed it, and then changed it again, and then I had a better idea, so we went with that, and then Justin had a better idea, so we went with that. And we're kind of letting our gut, when both of us go, oh, yeah, then that becomes the new plot. Recently, Justin gave the studio, just before quarantine dropped down, a presentation to myself and to the interns we had. I guess not interns, they're mentees that we had. That was basically him saying, okay, this is what I think the real plot is now, and here's a rough illustration schematic of what the whole story will be. And he got feedback from all of us. And I was thinking like, oh no, what if I really disagree with the trajectory of the new story? You know, you can get this ego in front of you that's like, oh, I'm the writer, I should have a say. How can he go running away? And that's fine if you're the only person in charge of a project, but this isn't a thing like that. So I sat there making notes like of when I felt things related to the images and what those emotions were in the new plot that was presented to me. It was like based on a rough concept, which was now presented more fully fleshed out by Justin. And I said to myself, like, what are the emotional beats that the art is already providing? Okay, then I went away with that schematic and said, now what are the story beats where I can add some different emotions or magnify these emotions that the art is giving me? That's what I'm going to do as a writer, is try to prop up or magnify the elements of the illustration. That's the role I'm sort of taking. That's how I'm looking at the story. And the last back and forth we had through text was that maybe this will be the book that has the least amount of actual exposition or writing in it of the three, because there's so many of these vistas. There's just so many of these beautiful landscapes that it says everything you need to about that place. You know, it doesn't have to be part of the story. It's part of the emotion of the story. And we might have 2 or 3 page turns where there's just no ugly words getting in the way. And so trying to figure out where that story will fit and between which characters. has been the challenge for me. So that's like, to me, it's like this super fun experimental process. And for the sake of the dear listener, we don't have a publisher attached. So we don't have somebody telling us you must have it by this day, or you must have it in this way, or it must fit this page count. So we have a freedom on this project that we totally control to do it the way we want.
It is dangerous to not have a due date attached to it, though. And I think in the next week or two, we can kind of look at the progress and set like more of a firm to be done date. Because every single book that I've worked on never really got done until I had a due date attached to it, you know?
It's funny. It's totally true. Yeah. The release date of Good Boys being pushed back changed my relationship with the deadline also. And it's hard to admit out loud, but it's true. You get this sense that your process could go on forever. And so you do need that editorial external force saying, no, this is the deadline. It's not up to you. And convention season has been that for us for a long time.
Yeah, you know, like we've got Calgary was this weekend, so you had to have everything done and ready for tomorrow. And if it's not, then you don't make as much money. Yeah. You don't make that sale. You don't meet that new client, you know. So
Dan is giving us that very wise look that our time is up, dear listener. This has been Super Pulp Science, where we have talked about how genre gets made. I am encouraging you to join the fight and make comments.